So, okay, we are live.
Hello, everyone. This is another lecture from the XP Lab. And today I have the honor to receive Xiao. And Xiao, she's a academic specialist on lean startup, and she does a lot of things on it. And she's a professor at Free University of Bolzano. She's involved in the community of software engineering for a long time. So please, Xiao, go ahead.
Thank you, Alfredo. And really, it's really nice to have this opportunity to speak to you guys today. And actually, I've been in São Paulo 2018, in spring 2018. And there I give a 1 week seminar on Lean Startup. So students at that moment worked really hard in that week, but we really had a great time. So that's why I'm really happy today I have opportunity again to present to you Lean Startup, which is one, let's say, way of working and way of thinking that really I'm excited about. And I hope that through today's talk, you can also be excited about it and would like to know more. So of course, it's not possible to give you all the knowledge of Lean Startup in 1 hour or less than 40 minutes. So what I want to know is to give you some anchor and put some seeds, plant some seeds there. So later on, if you want to explore yourself, you know where to go. And okay, so let me move my slides. And Alfredo already introduced me. So I'm working in Italy, northern part of Italy, a place, as you can see at the downside, bottom right side. It's really a nice mountain town. And we have Alps surrounding us. So really nice place to work and to live. And actually, I have a Brazilian PhD student and Brazilian colleagues living in this area. So this is for you in the future if you want to explore your life, your career beyond Brazil, beyond America. This is one place you probably can visit and have a try. And yeah, and I will let you know more about myself as well. But before I start today's lecture, I want to also know a little bit about my audience. So I want to know you as well. So I want you to tell me a little bit more about you. For this, I will use Mentimeter. Maybe some of you or all of you have already tried this, right? So you are familiar with how to interact with. So if you have your mobile phone or you have your laptop, open a window, go to menti.com, please. And I think this is actually, this is open to also to people who follow the streaming, people who are not strictly in the class, you can participate as well. So you can go to menti.com. And the code is on the top, 23, 58, 88, and 1. Yeah. Okay, so the first one is to try out the interaction to see if it works. So I want to know how happy are you today? Okay. We are on the positive side today. So people came to this lecture with a happy mood. So we have 24 answers coming in. And the happiness level is 7.3. That's not bad. I know in general, Brazilian people are considered happy people, right? In comparison to, by nature, in comparison to many other nations. Okay, so I think we got sufficient input. There's no more input coming. So the next one is really what I want to know from you. Even though this is also important, give me a little bit assurance that I'm not dealing with a grumpy group of people. That's nice to know. So yeah, I want to know a little bit more about what's your study discipline. Maybe some of you from computer science, some of you from other discipline, or if you are working, what's your professional background? Yeah, we have predominant computer science students, information systems as well, game development, software engineer. We have architect, urbanism, so people who audiovisual design. Okay, nice. Even though predominantly on engineering, computer science side, but still there's some nice diversity here. Parallel computing, hardcore computer science also. Yeah. Good. Thanks for sharing your background. So given your background, I think in this case, Lean Startup, I hope that it's a topic that can be appealing to you, because even though it's a methodology that's meant for building a successful business from an idea, and especially idea involved technology and innovation. But somehow the methodology itself is actually coming from software development community. So I think probably it's nice. It would be nice to know, more about this methodology given your background. Thanks. So we have again 31 participants interacting. I presume this is the answer we are going to number of answers we are going to get. Good. So the next one is to test a little bit about your knowledge of Lean Startup before I start talking about it. So I want to know, how many of you actually heard about it? Okay. Yeah, we have less than half people of the students actually heard about Lean Startup, and slightly more students, they never heard about Lean Startup, which makes sense for me to be here to talk about Lean Startup. And I hope even you heard about Lean Startup, your knowledge will be somehow refreshed, and you can also confront what I'm saying here and see if that confirms to what you understand about Lean Startup as well. And maybe the next slide is probably more relevant to the 14 people who actually know something about Lean Startup. Okay, so I want you to give me some input about if you can choose 3 keywords to describe Lean Startup. So what would you write there? And let's see if the things I'm going to talk about will pop up or not. Okay, it's open, so you don't have to, give all 3. 1 or 2 is also good. Logical, right? So lean is the first keyword. And actually, Lean Startup has the root from lean manufacturing, lean methodology. So if you are students of XP Labs, probably the terminology lean is not a new, unfamiliar term for you. We have also nice terms like entrepreneur, because it's a startup methodology, startup. And it's all actually closely linked to Agile. And you will see how agility, Agile values and principles are reflected in this methodology. Okay. Prototyping, good. Yes. And prototype in Lean Startup has another terminology. I'm expecting it to appear, and I don't see it for the moment. But overall, I think the knowledge map here is on the represents what Lean Startup methodology is, and it's on the right direction. Even though there are specific terms, specific practices maybe not mentioned, but that makes sense that for you to be here to learn a little bit more about Lean Startup, right? Save money, good. That actually linked to Lean, because Lean is about reducing waste, not to invest on the things that are not necessary, right? So by doing things Lean, of course, you save money, save resource. Good. Okay. And thanks a lot for giving this input. I think this input sets quite nicely the basis for me to start. I'm going to move on. Sorry, people. So you can continue interact because I see more answers coming in. But I think if I move on to the next slide, probably you will not be able to input anymore. So I would say now it's time to, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, based on this understanding, actually, I want to give you a little bit overview of what I'm going to cover today. I don't want to really overload you with all the details about the methodology. What I want to highlight in today's talk are two things. One, I want to give you an overall picture of Lean Startup. And by giving you this overall picture, I also want to explain to you why should you care? Why should we care about Lean Startup? So to motivate you a little bit more to study this methodology. And then I'm going to zoom in one particular piece of this methodology, which I think no matter you are going to be an entrepreneur in the future, build your own business or not, this central piece is going to be useful. If you are a developer in a large company, you're working on innovative project, this central piece is really a key knowledge piece that would benefit you and would prepare you, I hope will prepare you to approach innovative software development in a more effective way, let's say. Okay, so let's start with the first part. Lean Startup in a nutshell. So actually, Lean Startup has a startup in the name of this methodology. So actually, it emerged based on really this strong startup entrepreneurial movement, which actually already started back in 1980s, and especially the movement went strong in when it's internet age really, and then it went down again when there's a kind of bubble burst from the internet age. So all the startups shut off, but somehow, anyhow, the movement is still going on. And nowadays we hear a lot successful stories about startups. Of course, so that's why people compare the entrepreneurial movement, the startup movement, to industrial movement back in a century ago. And of course, we all know these famous companies, right? They are huge companies nowadays, but once upon a time, they were small garage startups or basement startups, and they succeeded. So the entrepreneurs at that moment succeeded to grow their business from a tiny, small entrepreneurial initiative to a huge company. And we also know people, behind these big companies, they almost became the celebrity of our society, right? We know their stories. For example, I remember several months ago, last year, when Jeff Bezos had his divorce from his wife, because the amount of money he gave his wife so impressive. He became really the headline of all the media. So this is the level of attention we give to successful entrepreneurs, right? And of course, last one, probably you also know, that's my also a Chinese I'm proud of. So the CEO of Alibaba. And actually, I want to highlight one thing here. Do you know this set of companies? They are also unicorns. They are really successful startups based in Europe. And they're all software intensive startups. So really the innovation coming from software side. And these are European based, but when I prepared this slide, I was thinking, I couldn't put exactly a face of CEO on these companies. So it's really, there's this subtle difference between the entrepreneurial culture of America and European entrepreneurial culture. I don't know, back in Brazil, when you talk about a famous startup, are you able to put a CEO's face or founder's face on that startup or not? This is anyway not the case in Europe. Okay, and all these companies actually they have a common thing that qualified them back then when they were small companies, qualified them as a startup, successful startup, because at that moment when they were small, they were looking for repeatable and scalable business model, and they found this model that worked for their idea, and then they succeeded to grow the company based on this business model, and they became huge. But to find repeatable and scalable business model is not easy at all. And most of startups actually died before they could find their such business model. So that's why Lean Startup became such useful methodology, because it's a methodology help you to iteratively find your repeatable and scalable business model. Yeah, I have a number here. Actually, can you guess what this number means? I cannot hear you, of course, because you are too many, but I can tell you, this is the number, is last year. This was the number of last year. This is the number of tech startups that was built in 2019. So a lot. We are not talking about just any startup, we're talking about high-tech startups. So among them, many are based on innovative software. But you can guess what is this percentage, right? So based on what just described there, so 99.9% of them never made it, never succeeded to find their business model. So that's how challenging, how difficult it is. And why it is so difficult to build an innovative startup. So I would like to highlight this fact. When you do something innovative, you are actually building things from 0 to 1. You have nothing, a very few lessons learned from previous experience of other companies, because that's by definition innovation, right? Nobody has done that before. So you are dealing, so a startup, innovative startup is really dealing extreme uncertainty here. And actually, this is my favorite definition. If you are looking for a definition of startup, this is my favorite one. And said a startup is a company that is confused about what its product is, who its customers are, and how to make money. Basically, they don't know anything about anything. And that's the extreme uncertainty. But this is so true. This is real scenario that innovative startups are facing. And of course, when we see startups, software startups, high-tech startups, we always mean that a startup built by a group of young, talented, and motivated students like you know. So because you are young, so you don't have knowledge, history of running a company, and you don't have money. And you hear a lot of people want to influence where you want to go with your startup. When you explain your idea to a person, everybody is keen to give you his opinion, right? So you have a lot of influences on where your startup can go. And because you want to build innovative software, so using cutting-edge technology is typical choice for startups, because they want to get competitive advantage by using new technologies. But don't forget, cutting edge sometimes also means bleeding edge, means that you will get blood by using that. So it's also really, there's a danger of using new technology there. So So all these things actually make startups so difficult. And that's why Lean Startup came into as a rescue or as a, how to say, approach that gives the hope to startups to be more successful. And I have on the top these two books, which are really the seminal work that started Lean Startup initiative. And the lower image I want to show you. So nowadays, we are not talking about anything really new here, because when the book, The Lean Startup, was published in 2011, that was already almost 10 years ago. So nowadays, the Lean Startup methodology really spread around the world. And that makes also for you interesting to know about it, because when you go to a different context, if you talk about software engineers in another continent or a startup in another country, if you talk about Lean Startup terminology, you are communicating, because it's not anymore just local knowledge. It's really widespread these days. Okay, having all this said, if you can remember one thing from my lecture, my talk today, I think it's the next slide I want to show you. What really is Lean Startup? Okay. Oh no, yeah, sorry. There's still a motivating slide here. I want to show you, because you are XP Labs, so you wonder why I'm talking about Lean Startup here. Actually, this is a picture from the version 1 annual survey on how Agile methodologies were adopted globally. And you can see that, forget about Scrum, we all know that it's dominant. And you see what you are learning here at XP Labs, the pure XP is not really that widespread. I'm sorry, Alfredo, to say so. So I hope it's not, but you see that.
This is the truth. You have to say it, yeah.
It's more about Agile, it's not about one particular methodology. Yeah. But you see that actually Lean Startup is considered one Agile methodology. So it became one of the mainstream Agile methodology as well. So the chance that you go to large companies and people talking about Lean Startup terms is also high, you know. So that's why I think it makes sense to introduce this to also software development community, or in a sense, introducing it back to, because it came from software development community. Yeah, this is the slide I'm talking about, and my favorite also. Because this is really conveys all what I want to say about Lean Startup. Lean Startup methodology is really a methodology that let you fail, not let you succeed actually, but let you fail, but fail in such a way, fail fast, fail cheap, so that you can stand up and restart, work again, do things again. So that's why I always tell my students, remember this picture, then you know what Lean Startup methodology is. Yeah, of course I have a little bit more serious picture about it as well. So this is a high level, really a bird view of what Lean Startup process is, starting from the left-hand side, envision an innovative business idea, and then brainstorming on the different aspects of the idea by thinking about the business model, and then test this business model iteratively, continuously, and then make decisions based on what you learned from this testing, and then iterate this process again and again until you find a so-called product market fit. And that's the moment where you know that you may find your repeatable and scalable business model. And that's the moment where you will need a lot of money from investors, venture capitalists, and then use that money to grow your business exponentially. And 99.5% of the startups fail before they even reach the product market fit. Okay, so as I said, today For the second part, we are going to focus only on the central piece. We're not going to talk about how you can find your innovative ideas, how can you brainstorm on this idea to flesh out a business model that you can test. I think this is a little bit beyond, the software development course, but this central piece, this way of working is really useful for software development as well. So I want to zoom here in my second part to give you more terminologies from Lean Startup, so you can connect that to the way you approach software development in innovative context. Let's see how that worked out. I hope I have enough time. Okay, so this central piece has a name called Build, Measure, Learn Loop. And it's a way of working in startup, and it's can be considered a way of software development for you as well. So it's fairly simple actually. So basically, you in an environment of extreme uncertainty, what makes sense is not planning to the last detail. We already know from Agile that doesn't work, right? So what you need to do is really build something quickly, and then measure the result of, put that into the hand of your potential customers, and then observe how they use it and collect data, and then measure the result, and then learn from this result to know that if you are delivering value to your potential customers or not. If you are not, okay, you probably have to build something different. If you did see the value, you did see that your customers perceive what you deliver to them with that small thing you put into their hand, then try to expand a little bit, build a little bit more. No, and the point is that you need to go through this cycle as fast as possible, because otherwise your competitors will be leaving you behind. And startups always running on time, no? So if you don't move fast enough, you will be out of business. So you need to get this cycle, go through this cycle as fast as possible. So that's the reason why you hear this kind of mottos from companies, right? I think the first one is from Facebook, move fast and break things. They say that if you don't, when you release a version of software in the market, if you are not shamed about what you are releasing, you're not moving fast enough. So really, this is somehow to try to counteract the tendency of being perfect. Some developers, some programmers, they don't want to show their software until they know that it's perfect. Nobody can catch any bugs and so on. So what they do in this case is to delay the learning and make this build, measure, learn loop longer than necessary. Because sometimes it's better to quickly release something and learn, and then try to perfect it at next iteration, rather than perfecting without learning, right? So that, I think, intuitively makes sense to you, I believe. And for that reason, so a lot of startups, typically what they do is they will fake they do something, they made something until they really make it. So when you see a really fancy website, they say, we are using artificial intelligence algorithm to predict the user behavior. And actually what's happening behind the scene, maybe several founders running here and there, manually collect some data, talking to customers. So they are the artificial intelligence algorithm. But what they do is that in this way of doing things, it's cheaper than spending a lot of time training a AI model and get the result, no? But what they do is that if they see this way of doing things actually generate positive result, having customer feedback, so customer perceive this way of doing has value, then they will invest on the training the model, right? If there's no reaction from customer, they have to think more fundamental question, if this makes sense to do or not, right? So yeah, and ask forgiveness, not permission. This is typical breaking rules, don't follow the rules until you have a really viable business, then you can negotiate the permission, like what Airbnb, Uber, they did. So okay, and yeah, so this build, measure, learn loop make a lot of sense, right? But actually, if you think about this cycle, what the thought process behind is actually reversed. It's not build, measure, learn, but it's learn, measure, build, actually. Because even you have to move fast, but if you don't know what you are going to learn, you build in a blind way, still you are wasting resource, right? So there's minimum thought has to be put into this before you start building something. And generally, that's why when you think about what you build, you need to think in a reverse manner. And what you want to learn here, typically in lean startup context, is called hypothesis. Because when you start, what you have is only idea, right? And you have assumptions about how this idea could work. Everything you think about that idea is assumption, or what we call hypothesis here. So what actually you want to build something to learn is if these hypotheses are true or not. If they are not true, then you have to change, you have to tweak your idea. And when you have just idea, it's easy to tweak it. When you already have concrete things, to change it, it's much more difficult, And also there's tendency, if this is your idea, you fall in love with it and you don't want to change it. And that make also emotionally more difficult to change. So you need to start actually with hypothesis, and then think about what metrics you can use to actually understand if this hypothesis is true or not, and then build experiments. So what you are building here, even though we call you build a small product to test with customer, in reality, this is not really a product. It's an experiment that allow you to learn if your hypothesis is correct or not. So, and then you start this cycle again. Okay, hope this makes sense to you. And I have, I think, another 15 minutes. I will zoom in these 3 elements, 5 minutes per each, to give you a little bit more terms. And then I will take on more questions. Okay. So hypothesis. Why it's so important to test this hypothesis? Because this hypothesis, as this picture shows, is if they are so-called killing assumptions, as what this guy is doing. This guy is jumping from one rock to another. And the hypothesis, the assumption he made behind is that he's able to do that, right? Let's hope that he validated this hypothesis. Otherwise, the result, the consequence is really serious, right? So this is the meaning of killing assumptions. So for your business, it's also true. For example, when Airbnb started, what's the killing assumption they have to validate in the first place? Is the house owners, they are willing to rent their spare room or their spare house to travelers, right? And on the other side, travelers feel safe to go to someone's private house as accommodation, even though they don't know those owners, right? And this is the killing assumption. If these assumptions were not true, there won't be Airbnb today, right? And what owners they did in the beginning is to test this hypothesis. And why this is important for us as a software developer is because if you assume the things, what you are building as hypothesis, the way you look at requirements will be changed as well. And this is actually was a tweet from 2013 from this the inventor, one of the inventors of assumption mapping. He said, in this context of startup, in this context of highly uncertainty, requirements are actually hypotheses, and your projects are really experiments. So you have to switch. So you are not just developing something for your customer based on what he said. You are experimenting together with him to explore if what he believes has business value is true or not. So realizing this is liberating, should be liberating. So it will change your way of approaching software development. I hope you are convinced by this tweet and will relook at your project from a different perspective. As I mentioned, if you are interested, do go to look at this assumption mapping technique, which is how to say, for the moment on the market, probably the most well-known approach to test to surface to specify hypotheses. And we are doing something in Bozano. Actually, here is a kind of shameless advertisement. Hopefully, you don't mind. Because we see that's so important, this first step of understanding hypothesis assumptions behind the project and idea. So we were also doing something from research perspective. Actually, this one is George Manigatti's research, and I hope that he's in the audience, so he would be happy to see this slide. And if in case you are interested, we are open to talk more about this. I'm just telling this is another way we are looking at how to elicit hypotheses. And we also try to promote this hypothesis thinking, hypothesis engineering, rather than requirements engineering in software engineering community, which is not easy, by the way. Okay, and here, the result, you are testing hypotheses, so there can be different results, right? Your hypothesis is valid. So in that case, you can continue what you are doing and do something more along that way. That means you can persevere. But sometimes you will really get really negative, strong results that tell you this is a no-go idea, this is no-go project. Don't waste any more your energy. Just stop so you can quit. But there are also third choice, which means pivot, means that the vision you are starting with is valid. So you see the value, customers see the value, but there are a lot of elements you put into this project is not valid, and the hypothesis testing tell you it's not valid. In this case, you don't have to change the vision. So you have one foot on the ground, but you have to switch the direction. So that's the sense of pivoting, from basketball playing. If you are a basketball player, you know very well this concept. So pivoting is actually a very important concept in lean startup, but it's not easy to do, really. And I have this slide here to just make you relax a little bit, because it's such an important term, and it's also really abused the term in the startup community. Everybody's talking about pivoting. Even change a logo on their website. They say, we are pivoting, we are using different logo. That's actually not pivoting. What pivoting in lean startup means is this one, what the author, Eric Ries, said. It's a change in strategy, means in those key business model elements, but you're not changing the vision. You still want to serve the ultimate goal of your project. Okay, so here I prepared another little bit interaction with you. Hopefully you will get this sense of pivoting. Let's hope it works. Here are the startups. So what I want to say with this slide is that pivot is a norm. It's not an exceptional thing in startup community. Every successful software startup pivoted. These are the startups we studied, and they all had major pivots. And I picked two from this group, and I want to show you, but you need to interact with me in this case. So you have to use Menti again. Okay, so if you want to take your Menti interface again, you can get now. So go again to menti.com and put the code 2358881. Okay. When I see people not joining anymore, I start the quiz. So it's a quiz. this quiz, I have two companies here. So I described what this company originally wanted to do and what they really did after they made this major pivot. I think you probably know it, but it needs a little bit thought. Let's see how many people can get it right. Okay. So we have 32 participants, 33. Let's give a little bit more time to allow more people to participate. Okay, I'll start. Okay, so this company before pivoting is a video dating platform. After pivoting is an online video sharing application. I think you probably know which company this one is, even though now it's not anymore a standalone company, right? Good. So yeah, actually, you didn't know that YouTube actually started as a video online dating, right? Video dating. So that was back in 2000, early 2000. And they thought that people would be interested in sharing the videos online for dating purpose. And they probably overestimated the willingness of people for this purpose at that moment. But they found that this video sharing is people really keen to do that, not for dating purpose, but for other purpose. So they pivoted, they did this so-called product pivot, and now it's it became a really successful story of YouTube, right? Okay, next one probably needs you a little bit thought. It's probably also easy if you read what they are now, and especially if you are a user. Okay. So which company is this? Before pivoting is a location-based service. After, a photo sharing app have different filtration criteria. So this time the minority is correct. Okay, yeah. Pinterest and Instagram had similar business now, no, but they started differently. Actually, Instagram started as a location-based service, so notifying users about locations. And Pinterest actually started as a so-called online photo window shopping app. So you know window shopping, when you pass through a shop, you just look things through the window, you don't buy things, right? And that's called window shopping. So Pinterest before did that app to allow people to do this window shopping online. It was not so successful, but the pictures people collected, and then they found that, yeah, they like to make it as a nice collection and then share with friends. Then it became this kind of social, you know, picture sharing. Yeah. Flickr, actually, also interesting story. Now, Flickr is online, web-based, time ago, web-based photo sharing application. When it started, actually, it was kind of online role-playing game. They were doing that. And again, they were not successful. They were not able to attract users. But what they found out is that during the game playing, people like to share photos. And that particular feature was used so heavily. And so that's why they said, okay, it makes sense. Let's focus only on this feature and let's make that as a single product and see if it's successful. And it was, even though nowadays probably people don't use Flickr anymore, not so often as the other two apps, right? But I would say at the given stage, when there's only web application, it was really a success. Okay, so hope you enjoy this little exercise. And yeah, this is the hypothesis. I just want to show you these key concepts. For metrics, what I want to say is go to read Lean Analytics book. It's really a nice book telling about if you are building an innovative software, building a software startup, what are the things really matter to monitor. And here, I think a very important concept, if you don't have time to read the whole book, but there's something you want to take away from this is be careful about what metric you use to measure your project, your startup, because we all know measuring wrong things will get you wrong learning, right? And there's a so-called vanity metrics. Really, you have to be careful and try to avoid, because those metrics, those kind of metrics make you feel good, but it doesn't change your behavior, doesn't give you more actionable points. So you are just wasting resource to collecting it. So one typical vanity metric is Facebook-like, I would say. So if you want to put your idea on Facebook and you want to validate if this idea has some, value or not, people, and by counting on how many likes you get, what you get, you don't know what to do next, right? And you know that people click like without sometimes even look into what your idea is. So this kind of vanity metric, don't waste your energy to collect it. Okay, I think my timer already told me I run out of my time. So I have another probably slide on the build part, and then I get 5 more minutes, then I take questions. Is that fine? Okay, good. Experiment. So now we come to this build part, which is really the action part, actually where I would say engineers, developers like, because that's the part they are really capable of and good at, right? And experiments in the startup context, but nowadays this is such a common term also in large companies, is this minimum viable product. I think many of you already know this term, even though you didn't give me this term when I asked the 3 keywords of lean startup. I didn't see this term emerging. Maybe you didn't think that's lean startup term, right? So because it's so commonly used nowadays in companies. And actually, what I want to say about this is minimum viable product is experiment. Don't look at it as product. Look at it as experiment. So what's important is to get this validated learning from it, rather than, to see how much money you get from customers, from users. Because again, that can be a good metric, but not the most actionable metric. Okay, so yeah, I have this slide to show you what its minimum viable product is. But what I don't have time to go through every scenario. What I want to tell you is that the first scenario, it takes too long to get validated learning. So that's not a good way to build minimum viable product. The second scenario, you can get some learning already from step 1, from iteration 1, but you are getting the wrong learning. Because if you are building a car, the first iteration you are delivering a scooter, then what you are learning, not valid, right? So the third scenario, even the first step is manual, is fake, right? Fake it until you make it, but you are going towards the right directions. You are get validated learning from it. So this is to give you idea how in this case, in your first iteration, what are you going to build? So are you building just a piece, or are you building something that can actually allow you to get validated learning? So this is something you could think about. Okay, and I have here a video, a very nice MVP example, very famous, of what Dropbox did. And a very famous example, fake it till you make it. So if you're interested, you can go to look this YouTube video. It's really nice. And I want to end my talk with actually a message. Because this lean startup approach, doing things, it's really about, as the picture show, you have to fail. You have to fail fast. But failing is not easy, because people are afraid of failure. People are sometimes ashamed of failure, right? So if you are working on your own startup, or if you are working in an organization, what you need to do is try to create this psychologically safe environment. So people are willing to try, people are willing to experiment. So even they fail, they know that it doesn't matter, what the validated learning counts. So that's, in that case, people are more willing to try. So that's why very important to make safety a prerequisite. So this actually is one of modern Agile principles. So that's very, I cannot emphasize the importance of this principle more. So, okay, yeah, with this, if you have time, I'd appreciate you give me some feedback, what's your takeaway from today's talk. But meanwhile, I will take questions.
Thank you very much, Xiao. Nice presentation. I think I'm very excited about being able to apply Lean Startup for the first time. It's amazing. So we are open for questions. Don't be shy. You can type in, or you can say it, or you can whatever. You can draw your question.
Yeah.
So as you are quite shy, I think a big message about Lean Startup is that if you are going to fail, you have to fail fast. Could you elaborate a little bit on it?
Fail fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this, this probably is associated with this minimum viable product a concept. Fail fast means that you develop something, either it's a piece of code, running code, or it's a wireframe or whatever that allow you to test a hypothesis. This thing, you should put least effort. So not spending months to develop it, but spending probably days, and find the cheap way doing it. If you can do this with low fidelity, like let's say wireframe rather than running code, so go with low fidelity prototype, like paper-based version of your product. The point is that in this way, you are able to learn from your potential customer from day 2 or day 3 of your project rather than day 10. So if with this, you already can gather, valuable learning, then you will know better how to develop more, let's say, high fidelity prototype to allow you to test other hypotheses or allow you to test assumptions in a better way. So this is the sense of fail fast. Yeah, actually the whole process is about fail fast. You can fail at different steps as well. Maybe you succeed to validate something at the ideation stage, but you will encounter failure also in the how to say, prototyping stage and then growth stage. The point is, the earlier you detect the problems in your idea, the better. I think this is similar as the software development, right? When it's still just how to say, a prototype, it's small, it's easier to fix the bugs rather than when it's down the line, when you release it as a full-blown product. Yeah. Hope this answers your question.
Oh, perfect. So, don't be shy. Go ahead, ask your question. Oh, we have one from Andrew. How can we validate our experiments or prototypes?
Okay, good. Again, goes back to this concept of a minimum viable product. So this is a vehicle that you can develop, you can design to validate your assumptions. For example, very, very common, very, very cheap and typical MVP is landing page. All the startups are doing that. Every project, what they do, the first thing they do is they will set up a landing page with the vision statement of the startup on the website. And why this is MVP? Because if people are not reacting to your landing, certain things, certain statements on your landing page. For example, you explain you haven't done anything yet, but in your landing page you say our software will allow you to share a photo online in a very very effective manner, very efficient manner, and please subscribe. No, and that button is called call for action. If nobody clicks on that button, you can forget about developing the whole thing, right? So because your assumption is that people are willing to share photos online, but nobody is interested in even going further to understand more, to subscribe to your service, then why should you waste your energy? In that sense, your assumption people sharing photo online is invalidated. Okay, this is a very quick example of a very simple MVP. MVP has different levels of complexity, sophisticatedness, and for different to test different assumptions. There are also other ways. You don't have to build anything. You can already test assumptions. For example, you can go out of the building, talking with some of your potential customers to understand if the problem you imagine they have is a real problem for them or not. Many times you will find that the problem is only in your mind. That's not a problem perceived by your customers. So this is even cheaper than build something, right? You just have to go to have a more open conversation with your customers. But this is already also, in a sense, experiment you can do. Yeah.
Thank you. We have two more questions. I don't know if you can read it. João, go ahead.
Yes. Andrew just asked. No, sorry. Arthur just asked. I also have a question about the fail fast model. In this case, what failing means? Something like validate your ideas. This idea doesn't contradict with like Steve Jobs' way of working, trying to release the highest quality product.
Yeah, that's a good question, though. Yeah, when Apple became big, their way of doing things is not anymore a startup way. No, they have all the resources to perfect the design, to perfect the product before they put in the market. Fail fast. What does it mean? Actually, yeah, means that to validate or better to invalidate the hypothesis, the assumption. Because you assume something, and then by doing the experiment on this assumption, you found that your assumption was not true. You couldn't go ahead with this assumption. That's the meaning of failure in the lean startup context. Of course, fail your company, fail your startup, that's the eventual failure, no? So the lean startup failing fast is to help you to avoid that eventual failure, or to be less expensive to have that eventual failure. So yeah, but that's a very good question, the meaning of failure here. Hope I answered your question.
There's another question here. Diego asked, is design thinking, lean startup, and agile a good approach?
Perfect question. Thank you for raising this. Actually, that's a very nice question. This actually a lot of people realize that lean startup is a good approach, but it's not a complete approach. For example, the part that I didn't talk about, the ideation phase or understanding the idea, and lean startup didn't give you good practices to follow. So to understand what is a idea worth trying, you need you need design thinking to better understand the problem, to validate the problem. You also need design thinking. A lot of knowledge there from design thinking to help you, but they go hand in hand. And then when you really come into the development phase, develop your MVP, then all the traditional, let's call traditional, all the traditional agile approaches will be helping. So they are fitting to each other. So that's really a nice question. Thank you for raising this.
Okay.
Any other
Do you have
questions,
more
guys?
questions? Okay, Xiao, people are quite shy today. I don't know why.
Oh, no worry. I think probably also because my network is at a bit higher level. So I'm giving you a picture and content. So it's not ask questions. But the questions asked are really nice. I really think they are right questions and help me learn more that I didn't mention before.
Okay, perfect. And I just double checked. George was watching, so he listened to his name several times.
Okay, thanks.
Do I still have time to ask one more
Sure.
question? I don't know if I can explain this in a very clear way, but once I heard that the sentence "ask forgiveness, don't ask permissions," perhaps can prevent some people from like searching for feedbacks or listen to their stakeholders about useful insights about what they were doing. And I don't know, what do you think about that? How like when you think is a good time to use this sentence and when it isn't?
I would say, I think that, of course, when, like Uber and Airbnb at this stage, if they still say, don't ask permission, ask forgiveness, it's not anymore reasonable or practical, because they are actually facing these legal issues. What by this sentence, I think it's meaningful in the early stage, because many startups, many founders are stopped there because they are afraid. They didn't do anything. Just by thinking that they are breaking the rules, they are not, they stopped without even do something, try to understand better, if there's a way to solve this issue. So by imagining they are breaking the rules and they have to ask for permission, they just paralyzed and without doing anything. So in that case, I would say they need encouragement, ask forgiveness, don't ask for permission. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yeah, yes, it does. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay, Xiao, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. And the students are quite shy today. I don't know why. Maybe because it's raining in Brazil. Maybe, let's say. I don't know why. So thank you again. And now we are going to...
My last slide.
Sorry. Your last slide. Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks again for inviting.
Oh, no, but go to your last slide. Could you please tell me why? We want to know.
No, I'm asking feedback from you. So that's why I presume people are busy at giving me feedback rather than asking questions. So,
Yeah. Only
what's
a
the
dozen
biggest
questions.
Yeah.
Dozen answers.
Yeah, we have answered. Yes. Hypothesis, possibilities. So this in the beginning. I think I'm reaching my goal today. So even you didn't ask many questions, I think the takeaways are really great. If this is really your takeaways, I'm happy. Yeah. Someone wrote Chinese to me also. Thanks. Thank you. I feel fast and cheap. I want to try it. Great. Yeah, build Maryland loop and reverse version. Thanks. Feeling is important. Without feeling, without learning, right? Thanks. Yeah, I think this is the last one. Yeah. Thank you so much for feedback, and I hope you are motivated and want to learn more about startup.
Xiao, thank you again. It was great to have you here. Unfortunately, this time we cannot jog together, but let's hope that we'll be able to do it again soon.
Yes, I'm looking forward.
Okay, thank you again. It was really nice. Thank you again.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.